So as we gather around this virtual campfire, I want to tell the story. I want to tell the continuing story of why all this COVID-19 stimulus will not cause inflation. And in particular, I want to talk about liquidity and go into more detail. And my central thesis goes something to this effect. We all depend upon liquidity to pay our bills, from the biggest businesses to you and I. All of us have bills to pay that we have to pay today, and liquidity helps us do that. Liquidity dried up, as we know, when COVID-19 hit. But how specifically did liquidity dry up? Well, I'm going to show that it's a paper loss, in the same way that if your house goes down in value, you've experienced a paper loss, you haven't realized it yet. But this paper loss that's taken away from liquidity is money, and when that goes down, that's a loss of money for the economy, which then means we lose money, and that also means activity also goes down. Obviously, we don't want activity to go down to something like, let's say, the Great Depression or something. And so that's the sense in which the Australian government has now stepped in and providing stimulus, but all it's doing is restoring the lost money. So let's go into more detail. And so it's easiest to start off with an example of yourself. So let's say we have the bank, and once again I'm using balance sheets because they're fun, and we have you. And now the bank has reserves and also has a deposit here. Well, it has deposits, but we'll say one deposit. That is a liability for the bank, that's what it owes. And then here, that deposit is for you. And this is your cash in bank. And the idea is that these two trade at 1-to-1. So whatever you see when you log into your computer, let's say you see $1,000, that's digitally, you can withdraw all that $1,000 as cash, and it's $1,000. You don't withdraw that and it becomes $800 or something. It's 1,000, it's 1-to-1. But we take this 1-to-1 relationship for granted. And that's only because this bank and also the banking system works with the RBA and the government to maintain that. It maintains that on our behalf. Now the thing is, this is our liquidity. All this deposit, let's say we have $1,000, that is our liquidity to pay bills. And we can draw upon this deposit anytime. We can make a payment anytime we like, and the bank has to honor it. And it honors, as I said, 1-to-1. It does a whole lot of activities on the asset side of the balance sheet, and of course on the liability side and the equity, and it maintains that. And that's something you can just rely upon. And you can have up to $250,000 in any one bank. You can do this in multiple banks, and this is all federally insured. But that's the thing, are you really going to have $250,000 in the bank? Probably not. You're going to diversify your holdings, of course, into other assets, and maybe only a small amount you need on deposit to make payments. And of course, this varies person to person. But what I want to emphasize is that this relationship holds because of the bank, the banking system, the RBA, and the Australian government. All work together to make sure that this relationship holds. But what about if you're a big institution? You're not going to just have a deposit. You might have other things as you might have securities, which you also use as money. You could have hundreds of millions of dollars, not just $250,000. You could have many hundreds of millions of dollars that you use. But these securities are a little bit different to just your normal everyday deposit, as we see here with you and I, and under a bank. You might, for example, have commercial paper. And this commercial paper is essentially just a bond issued by a big business. So we have a big business, and it issues commercial paper to then raise money. And people are willing to invest specifically in this big business because, well, they believe that the big business, let's say it's like Microsoft or something, Microsoft has been around for 30 plus years, you believe this is a good investment you can make. This commercial paper has a higher rate of return than, let's say, an Australian government bond or Australian government treasury, and you're willing to invest and you get a better return. So these people that use commercial paper as liquidity, they use it as money, they buy things with it essentially, and the commercial paper market is quite large. But the thing is, the commercial paper market depends upon the value of the business. In this example, it's a big business. But what happened to the big businesses when COVID hit? We have COVID hits. Well, the problem is this big business has value because it has inputs. And a lot of those inputs, obviously, lots of cash. That's what makes it a big business. But the thing is, COVID hits and this cash dries up. Remember, we're reining in our spending. We're not allowed to spend money. So I hope that you can now get a sense of what is happening. Big business, which is issuing this commercial paper, and this commercial paper depends upon the value of the big business, the inputs into the big business go down, and therefore the commercial paper, the value of the commercial paper also goes down. It's a capital loss. It's not a realized loss yet, but the thing is, people are trading this as money, and all of a sudden everyone wants to exit this and go into cash. And so there's this big flight into cash where they want to get out of this. The thing is, everyone's trying to do it at the same time. And that's the sense in which now the Australian government steps in with cash injection into the system. So if we imagine the commercial, just as an example, commercial paper, this is the entire market in Australia. And when COVID hit, because the commercial paper market has a bunch of inputs into it, those stopped and the commercial paper market went down. Let's say now to this area. That's a loss of liquidity for a lot of big businesses. And when that liquidity dries up, activity then follows. But it's not just that activity goes down. The problem is businesses can also close, and we don't want this. And that's the sense in which when the Australian government stimulus happens, all it's doing, simplified of course, but all it's doing is refilling this paper loss. Another way to visualize a paper loss is like this. Let's say you bought a house. This is your balance sheet. This is you. You bought a house and you have your mortgage. And 500K, and the mortgage is for 500K, just to make things simple. Let's say the value of the house goes down to 400K. Well, the thing is, the balance sheet no longer balances out now. What balances this out? Well, it's now minus 100K capital loss. You haven't actually lost $100,000. However, this capital loss will matter. Let's say you want to go to the bank and you want to show your assets. In version A, when you bought this house, you presented 500K in assets. And seeing this, the bank was willing to give you a certain amount of loans, or essentially just willing to be really nice to you, willing to roll out the red carpet. However, in version B, when you've had this capital loss, you then present 400K in assets, and the bank isn't willing to be as nice because you're no longer as rich. You no longer have that paper wealth. That went down. And that is the sense in which liquidity went down. Obviously, in this example, your house is not liquid and you can't just willy-nilly trade it. But you can imagine securities going down in value, exact same principle. You experience a capital loss and then the value goes down and then you're trying to get into cash. Everyone's trying to do that at the same time, and then we create problems. And that is the sense in which the government stimulus, when it happens, does not cause inflation. All it's doing, if there was a government stimulus to bring back up the value of your house back up from 400,000 to 500,000, that would not be inflationary. It was just returning the status quo. And that's the thing. The Australian government stimulus topping up is a better way to think about it. Topping up. That then brings us back up to the status quo. It just brings us back up to the same point we were before the losses happened. And then ultimately, once we all recover from this, let's say 6 months, let's be optimistic, and things start again, businesses are still open. We haven't forced businesses to shut down. They're open up again, and business and everything can essentially, hopefully, go back to normal. So I hope I've shown that this capital loss, this paper wealth, by it going down, causes big problems for the economy and causes problems for activity in the economy, and ultimately can cause unnecessary bankruptcies in businesses, which we don't want. Because we want these businesses to be open for when people want to go back to work and start looking for new jobs. So, thank you for watching. Subscribe, rate, and share all the good stuff. Definitely helps my channel, and I'll see you guys next time.